My name is Cassidy Begeot. I'm 29 years old. I'm from Boyd County, Kentucky. I am a peer support specialist at the Green Up office, and I'm a court liaison, and I work for First Day Forward. I was probably like 7th or 8th grade when I started drinking and smoking weed. I had older siblings, older cousins. I was kind of the youngest, so it just became like I seen them do it, so I did it. I can remember when I was in like 7th or 8th, I started sneaking out with my sister, partying, and I thought it was cool, like that's what cool people did. My dad was an alcoholic, my brother was an alcoholic, my sister was hanging out with older people, so I kind of just went with the flow. I kind of just fell into the same habits that they had, and I never really thought like I was going to end up like my dad or my mom or like anyone in my family. I just kind of thought, like this is what we do, like this is what my family does, this is what we do. I never really seen my life turning into anything like theirs. The moment I realized I was really like going down a wrong path was when I was in foster care. I just kept sneaking out and hanging out with all the wrong people, and I was sent off to the Ramey home. And when I got out of the Ramey home, I went back to the same stuff. Even though I was blessed with an amazing foster family, they really took me in and took care of me, I still wanted to like sneak around and do things, I think when I really realized I had a problem was whenever I turned 18, I went into this program called Independent Living through foster care. And I was probably living there 2 to 3 months, and my house became like a party house. Every night we were drinking, smoking weed, doing acid, doing all the party stuff. And, I really thought life was just one big party. Like, my apartment's paid for, bills are paid for, everything's great, life is good. And then I got evicted from my first apartment. When I got evicted from that apartment, I went to another apartment, and I met my son's dad there. When I got with my son's dad, he was a full-blown addict, and I was still thinking I was just living this big party life. And I started working at a strip club. And when I started working there, I got introduced to some people that sold heroin, sold meth, and I was getting dope for free, and I started doing it every day. And I never thought it was a problem still, and I just kept going until I got evicted from that apartment too. Me and my son's dad, we ended up moving into a hotel in Ashland, and I was getting high every day, but you never really think it's a problem when you have the money to pay for it. Long story short, after we were living in this hotel, we hotel hopped a lot. I ended up finding out I was pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I quit getting high, I quit doing everything. I ended up staying at Safe Harbor in Ashland and getting my own house through HUD. When I got my house through HUD, I let my son's dad come live with me, and he had his own demons. I don't really want to say too much negative stuff about him because he was battling his own addiction and his own demons. But when I got this house, I thought things were going to change, like he was going to quit selling dope and getting high, but it never changed. And, I never made him leave. I never made him move out or anything like that. But after I had my son, they sent me home with a bottle of Percocets. And I had those Percocets done in probably 2 days. My son's dad, somewhere in between there, ended up going to jail, and I started working at the strip club again, and I started doing heroin every day. When my son's dad got out of jail, we got in a really big fight one night, and the cops got called. Well, I didn't think anything of it until the next day when I came home from work from Applebee's. Me and my son's dad, we got in a really huge fight again, and I can remember sitting in my living room after he left holding my son and just praying to God, like, please help me, like, please do something, please save me, please save my kid. So about 10 o'clock that night, 3 or 4 Ashland police officers came knocking on my door, and CPS came knocking on my door, and by that time my son's dad was back home, and they had asked me and my son's dad if we could pass a drug test, and of course I said yes. And then when I got to thinking about it, I was like, no, I smoke weed, because I didn't think weed was a bad drug. They ended up taking my son from me that night and putting him in foster care. I had no idea where my son was for the first 72 hours. I will never forget the feeling walking around my house just thinking like it felt like I had lost something, you know, like there was a death in my house. And I was really, at that point, I think I was just to the point where I was beaten down and I didn't know what to do. So I kept playing the system probably for about a year or so until I just realized like there's no way, like I'm never gonna get my kid back, I'm never gonna get sober. I got to the point where I didn't even want to get sober. I remember I went to Boyd County Jail and my social worker had came and tracked me down, and she had told me, she was like, you need to sign your rights over. And I told her, I was like, well, have my lawyer come over and I'll sign my rights over. And before I got out of jail that day, Andy Marcolonis came over and I signed my rights over to my son. And when I left jail that day, that was it for me. I had no plans on ever getting sober. I wanted nothing with sobriety. I hated God. I hated the world. I thought everybody was against me. You know, my son was gone for good. My son's dad was going to prison. I just felt very alone in the world. The turning point for me was when I went to jail. I had been released on a possession of heroin charge, ran on bond, went back to jail and caught a bail jumping charge. Well, they had released me on probation and IOP, and when I got out, I ran. But when I got caught again, I was getting ready to sign a 30-day sanction and long-term treatment, and in my mind I was like, there's my ticket out, like I'm gonna go get high, like this is it. I had quit calling home, like to friends. I mean, I called my mom and my dad and stuff, but I quit calling home. And one day I thought, you know, I'm gonna call home, I'm gonna call one of my old friends and see what's going on. And when I called him, he was like, you'll never believe who passed away. And he told me the person's name, and that person just happened to be my best friend out in the streets. Him and I spent a lot of time running the streets, hanging out, and hearing that he had overdosed and died, I was like, that's the sign I needed. You know, that God is telling me something. And that was my turning point, you know. Not only that, but I have a son out there that's gonna have questions to ask me. You know, I don't have custody of my son today, and I haven't seen him since he was 2 years old, but he has questions to ask me, and I need to be there to answer him. If there's anything I can do in life, it's answer his questions. Recovery is, I mean, I can't even explain it, the things that it's given back to me in life. You know, it's given me freedom, it's given me peace, serenity. You know, I no longer have to worry when I wake up, what am I gonna eat? You know, where am I gonna sleep? None of that. Like, I have friends today, and friends is something I never had. I have my family in my life. I have an amazing job where I can give back to other people what's been given to me so freely. It's given me a life I never thought I would ever live. You know, today I'm in school. I'm working on a bachelor's in psychology and then gonna go straight into my master's. And that is something I never thought I would do. I actually never thought I'd work a full-time job. You know, I never thought I'd work a job that you get a paycheck, a pay stub. You know, like that's something I never thought. I always thought I was just gonna be with some dope boy or, you know, just whatever. But it's really, honestly, it's just giving me peace, freedom. Like, I don't have to look at myself in the mirror and hate myself anymore. I don't have to be ashamed of who I am when I walk out in public. You know, when people say my name now, I know it's not like, oh, that's Cassidy. Do you know what she did? You know, like I don't really know how to explain it. Yeah. It's just brought a lot of like peace and joy and happiness into my life. There is hope. You know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is help. You just have to reach out for it. And when it comes to you, which doesn't happen very often, grab onto it and never let it go. Because that's something I wish I would have done when I first lost my son.